Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes, and I am finally back doing album reviews. It took a couple weeks, school is finally out, I'm all graduated and heading off to college in August, so this is going to be kind of crazy, so in a bit, after a while, you'll see a change in scenery with album reviews once I go out west. So thank you guys for your patience and waiting up for me to continue album reviews. And before we get into this next review, I'm just going to cover a couple things that I think need to be covered. First of all, you might notice that there's no second monitor behind me. Not really that important, but I just took it down because it was kind of a hassle, so now we've just got the single computer monitor. Not really a big deal. I've converted into DJing on a Mac. I know the Windows fans are going to hate me for it, but it's a lot more convenient than the laptop that I had for DJing, and it's going to be a lot easier to use for gigs. So I'm now using that. I've actually got it right here. It's an old MacBook Pro, so yeah, it's going to be pretty nice to use. And the third and last thing I'd like to talk about is the ratio of dislikes I've been getting on videos. And I've talked about this before on the channel back a while ago. There was a streak, and I know it's just, it's most likely anyway, someone in particular going through and disliking all my videos, presumably because they didn't like something I said or something like that. I don't really like to let it bother me, but it's just kind of ridiculous, and especially on my reviews, a lot of the time is what people will do is they'll just disagree with something I say and they'll go and dislike the video, and really that's just a very immature thing to do. If it's something that you think I need feedback about, leave a comment and tell me what to do. Don't dislike it. That's not helping anyone. It's not helping me. It's not helping you. All it's doing is increasing the dislike ratio, which is in turn causing other people to dislike the video because they see the red bar and try to make it grow. I've seen that happens before. If a lot of people dislike something, then people will continue doing it if they also disagree, rather than leaving some helpful feedback, which is really what I could use, rather than just nasty comments and calling me, I've heard retarded and things like that in my comments, and I just really don't think it's okay to use those kind of words to describe someone who's just getting their opinions out about music. And that's really all it is opinion, and that's all. So yeah, if you guys could just leave some feedback next time instead of just going out and disliking crap without really helping anyone, that would be awesome. Like I said, appreciate your guys' support. I've been getting a lot of positive stuff on reviews from dedicated people who have actually watched the majority of my reviews, and I really appreciate that when you guys continuously watch my material, and this is something I really like to do. So without further ado, let's get into this review, which kind of is the reason why I started the video with this, is because I wasn't a big fan of this album. It is Déjà Vu by Giorgio Moroder, and I was actually sadly first introduced to Giorgio by the last Daft Punk album, Random Access Memories, and this album was fantastic. Definitely one of my top albums of, I think it was 2013, won a ton of Grammys last year, I think, just at the 2014 Grammy Awards, which was absolutely awesome because, like I said, it was one of my favorite albums of the year, and definitely deserved all the hype it got. And on the track Giorgio by Moroder, his story and I think maybe a little bit of production, not sure about that, but it's definitely able to hear that it's some of his sounds that you can hear in this track after I'd started listening to him a bit more. Giorgio was popular back maybe in the 60s. He was born in 1940, so this dude's 75 now, which is absolutely crazy that he's still producing music this late in his life. Kind of took a break for a long time. For years and years and years, Giorgio was kind of silent, and he finally came back on this Daft Punk record about his story and how he was a leading pioneer in the synthesis and synth pop and electronic music with synth work, especially how he kind of revolutionized it, and that's what I feel like he really wasn't doing with this record. Now, Giorgio by Moroder was one of my favorite tracks on the Random Access Memories album, and I was really looking forward to hearing something good from this, but what it ended up being is kind of just a generic pop record, and I don't like to say that because it wasn't entirely, but I'll just get into kind of my feelings about this. Either what he's doing is taking his classic sounds that you'll hear on tracks like Giorgio by Moroder, or some of his old soundtrack work, or his song Racer. You'll be able to hear a lot of different styles like that with his old synth work, or you get into something just completely kind of disco synth pop, and really I don't think either of these sounds are very revolutionary. He's either copying sounds, copy-pasting what he used to do, or he's bringing more of a modern sound, but it's ended up just being generic pop. So it's about half and half, I'd say, about even, maybe a little more on the pop side, and that's kind of why I just didn't like it. It was pretty boring for the most part. I'm just going to get into a little bit of my opinions. First of all, I'd just like to get out of the way, Tom's Diner, just absolutely horrifying. It's actually the most popular track on the record now, which I don't really understand, probably because it has Britney Spears, and everyone loves it when there's a new Britney Spears track out. But honestly, this track, the lyrics are bland, they're just a bit cringy, they really don't really fit in anything. As I was listening to it, I was just kind of like, I was actually making faces. I was by myself, but I was making faces, cringing at the lyrics of this song. It just didn't really follow very well. It's about a girl in a diner, and a bunch of random stuff happens, and it really just doesn't make any sense, and it's not really connectable in any kind of way. So, and then the production on this one isn't necessarily astounding either. Now, a lot of his productions on this are very good, but the vocalists and the lyrics do get a bit bland. Like I said, my main pick with this is just how unrevolutionary it is, which seems to be something that Giorgio wanted to do on Daft Punk's album, as he explained how he revolutionized electronic music. I wanted to see some kind of rebirth and something cool on this record, rather than what we ended up getting. There's a few tracks I did like on this. The title track, Déjà Vu with Sia. I'm not the biggest fan of Sia, but this one was very nice, very cool to listen to, and very groovable. The first track on this album takes a little more of a house route, For You With Love. I'm a house guy, so I ended up liking this one, although it was fairly generic electronic music. And one of my other favorites, with one of my favorite vocalists, Matthew Koma, the song's called Tempted, and it was just very interesting. I think his vocals fit very well with this funky kind of style, and just made it very enjoyable, and I like this track and ones like this, but we didn't get too much of it as we end up getting into some generic pop. We've got the song Diamonds with Charlie XCX, and she's been way overused recently, especially with her rise and fall with Icona Pop and Iggy Azalea, and honestly I just don't really see the need to keep using her over and over again, because like I said, there's just really no need for it, and I'd like to enjoy most of this, but a lot of it, the lyrics are just very repetitive, the production is kind of bland, and it's just really not fun to listen to. I actually found myself struggling to get through by the end of this record. There was one track at the end, I Do This For You. I think that track was kind of nice. I was expecting to hate it because it had a little bit more of a route that I would have heard on the Purity Ring album and on Alice in Wonderland's album, both records of which I really didn't like at all. I might get my opinions out at some point on the Purity Ring album, which I really, really didn't like. But I did like this track, and I think it did take a little more modern twist with those classic elements, so I think it was very nice. But honestly, this record just very boring and very bland. Like I said, there were a few tracks that I did really like on it, but honestly, I expected something much more revolutionary and groovy, and using classic styles, but adding a futuristic twist, and maybe blending some house music and maybe some other electronic elements, but instead we just get a fairly bland pop record with really bland lyrics and just something that's not too enjoyable. So, but a few tracks were enjoyable, so I'm going to give this record a solid 3 out of 10. A little bit higher than Alice in Wonderland's album, a little lower than Steve Aoki's, if I remember, which is very sad because Steve Aoki's music is nothing to be honestly compared to a legend like Giorgio Moroder, but in this context, I really don't think it's worth anything more than a 3, and I definitely will not be purchasing this record because I had a very hard time getting through with it. So, like I said at the beginning of this video, leave me some feedback if you disagree with me. Tell me why I'm wrong instead of just going to dislike it, because it seems to be a common theme that whenever I give something anything lower than a 6 probably, I get a lot of negative feedback, even though my kind of standard for buying a record is anything that I think is a 6, 6.5 or higher, I usually buy. As you might have seen from my record collection, which I haven't shown off yet, I buy a lot of stuff. So this isn't one of those cases. I don't think I'll want to get it anytime soon, unless I suddenly have a change in opinion. What do you think of the record? Let me know below, and give it a thumbs up if you dislike the record too. Or if you just like what I said about it. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this little review. I'll see you guys later. Peace.